Okay, hey YouTube. So today I've got a Mazda B 2600i pickup truck. It's a 1993, and it needs a new valve cover gasket. This is the valve cover, if you don't know that. And the first thing I'm going to need to do here, obviously, is I'm going to have to remove these vacuum lines, or that vacuum line. This throttle cable, I'm going to have to take that off. I'm going to have to undo this screw and unmount these distributor cables. And I'm going to have to detach the air intake and whatever this is. I'm pretty sure this is a intake bypass. So, in case there's too much air coming in or something, I don't know. And then I might have to take off this throttle body. Because I don't know if it has enough clearance right here. I think it's going to hit the throttle body, and I'm going to have to take the throttle body off too. While I'm doing that, I'm pretty sure it hasn't been done. I got throttle body cleaner. I'm going to clean the throttle body since I'm going to have it apart. It's going to be right there anyway. Might as well do that. And I'm going to check for problems too with it, as I go. But I'll just jump cut right back into this whenever I get some of this stuff off here and give you guys an update. Before you start, you want to disconnect your negative battery terminal. I'm not sure if that's necessary, but anytime I do work on my car, I disconnect that terminal just to protect my everything. Okay, so here's an update. I got the bypass down there on the floor, and over here I disconnected the intake, took the bypass off, and I moved the throttle body up, and there's a bolt there holding it up, and I'm sure it's just going to be fine right there. But if you look inside my throttle body, it is dirty. Let's take that off there. So I'm going to hit that with some throttle body cleaner. While I work on everything else, it'll dry. So that's something you can look at while you're in here, taking your valve cover off. I'll hit you guys with an update whenever I get this cover off. But first I'm going to have to get these bolts. I think they're 10 millimeter. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a mechanic. There's my screwdriver. But I'm going to have to take these bolts off all the way around. And lift that up. And nothing's in the way right now. If you're having trouble breaking these bolts, I mean, not breaking them, but like loosening them, spray some WD-40 or some other kind of penetrating oil on there, and wait a second, and then try again. Odds are you're going to get that right off of there, like, just a quick push. But once you get them off, it would be handy to put a magnet on your socket. I don't have a magnet, but if you put a magnet on your socket, then you can pick up your screws along with the socket, and they won't fall down into your engine. It is important that you do not remove your spark plugs. I mean, it would probably help if you took out these distributor cables, but you need to make sure you know the order they go in, and I don't really know the order, so I'm not taking them out. But leave the spark plugs in case oil falls into there. It won't go right into your combustion chamber and possibly hydrolock you. So leave those spark plugs in while you do this. Okay, so now I got all the fasteners out, all the bolts, and I put them over here in a pile separated from all my other fasteners. And at this point, one of two things is going to happen. Either this is going to come off really easily, or it's going to give me some trouble and not want to come off. If I'm lucky, it'll come off easily, just like that. And it'll just lift right up. And shit, a piece of metal just fell down in there. I'm going to have to get that out. I think a piece of metal just went in there. But I'll have to get that out in a minute. So if anything falls in, you got to fish that out. So now my valve cover is off, and it's kind of warm still, so I'm going to put it down. However, if yours gives you a little bit of trouble, you might try tapping it with a hammer on the side of it. Just not real hard, just tap it, just give it some shock to knock it off. And some mechanics will get a pry bar and very carefully wedge it on something like, I wouldn't say on the distributor, but maybe over here, but very carefully pry it apart. And you don't want to accidentally scorn this surface right here or bend it or anything, because this needs to have a perfect vacuum seal. So if you do anything stupid like I did and drop something in there as soon as you open it, you're gonna have to fish that out of there, and I'm gonna have to get a magnet and try to get that out of there the best I can. So you do not want to move anything here. Everything's got specific timing and everything, so don't move anything. What I want to do now is I'm going to clean this whole head cover off. This valve cover, I mean, not head cover. I'm going to have to remove this whole gasket here. And that's where it failed. Right there. And that is really hard. This should be rubbery still, but that is really hard. That rubber has turned to plastic. It's so hard. And I'm gonna have to get in there. See, this is where it failed right here. That's my leak. And I'm gonna have to get in there with a tool and carefully pull all of that gasket out. Then clean it the best I can. This needs to almost be reflective to cast my reflection back at me. Same thing with right here. You need to go all the way around. And it looks like the last time it was replaced, the mechanic put silicone on it, which is fine. That's a good place to put silicone. I'm gonna have to replace this part of the gasket too. See, this is actually a gasket as well. If you pull it up like that, don't be stupid like me and almost throw it in your engine. But that's a part of the gasket too, and there's gonna be another one back here too. So I have the replacement gasket right over here, and whenever I go to put it on, there's only one way it'll go on, obviously, but I'm gonna have to like size it up and make sure it's perfect, and then put it back on once it's clean and everything. The silicone thing here, this is all optional, but you're gonna have to clean all the old gunk off. You can put silicone here and it'll help because this sudden down dip creates a weak point. But if I feel here, this part of the gasket still feels rubbery actually. Over here it's dry, it's like rock. And wear gloves. And yeah, so you can put the silicone on there to help, but it's not necessary. Always, before you open it, compare the old gasket with the new one. They must be identical, obviously. But as you can see, this one says not returnable if seal's broken. So you want it, this gasket costed me $22. So you don't want to get the wrong gasket and realize, and then have to buy another one, spend another $22. Anyway, always compare that gasket. If you look at the old gasket that I took off the engine, off the valve cover, and it is very hard. Look at that, it just snapped right here. This is about where the exhaust manifold was on this side. This is where it got hottest, and that heat just destroyed this gasket. It is all cracked and just broken. On this side where it wasn't as hot, it's still rubbery. It still has that rubbery feel. But this whole gasket is ruined. Anyway, it's gonna get replaced along with the two end gaskets. So these are the two end ones. You can clean this valve cover with dish soap and water from your garden hose, but when you're done, make sure you get all that soap off of there by spraying it clean. And you don't want any soap residue at all on that, because that'll set up inside your engine. You also want to make sure it's perfectly dry. You don't want a single drop getting inside your engine, because oil and water does not mix, and water expands, and that damages your, when it turns into steam, it'll expand and damage your new gasket, or blow your head, or worse, throw a rod or something. You don't want that happening, so this needs to be perfectly dry, not a speck of water. Okay, so if you did what I did, and you dropped something metal inside your engine, if you look down in there, you can see it right in between my chain, my timing chain. It is lodged right there. If I start the engine, I'm going to throw a timing chain and just totally destroy this engine. So, what am I going to do? I got a long telescoping stick. You can get one of these at AutoZone. It has a magnet on the end. So, I'm going to stick that in there. And the best I can, let's see. I'll do it from the other side because that side's more open. So, and I'm going to go ahead and grab that piece of metal. That would totally destroy my engine. So, yeah, if you do that, that's how you get it out. Now, with that valve cover off, you're going to want to look in here and inspect everything. And actually, for a 23-year-old engine with almost 200,000 miles on it, I don't really think this looks that bad. It's got some obvious wear here, but it's still in immaculate shape. So, well, not immaculate, but as good as a 23-year-old engine is going to look. But you also may notice, like I did, like I mentioned earlier, dirty throttle plate. So you'll want to spray that with some throttle body cleaner, clean that out while you got it all taken apart like this. So once that's clean, you're going to want to put the new gasket in. This is the new one, and I left some of it out just to show you. But all it does is, this is real simple, way easier than it used to be. They used to have these complicated paper gaskets, cork, even like a metal gasket. Now they use a silicone, and this is like a silicone rubber, but you just push it into the ridges on this particular truck. Anyway, just make sure it's flat all the way around. And before you put it back on the engine, just take some oil, and I can just get some from right here. There should be some fresh oil right there, actually. Yeah, see, that's clean oil right there, because I just got my oil changed. But take some oil on your finger, wipe it all the way around, and that will help it create a seal all the way around it. And I need a little more. There's a good amount right there. Woo! Got a lot on my finger right there. But go all the way around, just like that. And just get oil on it. That helps it create a good seal. So, once you've done that, I should be wearing gloves, huh? I'm going to be hearing that in the comments. Just scroll down there into the comment section, you'll see 150 people telling me, you should be wearing hand protection. They're right. I should. I don't have any, but I should. So, when you go to put your cover back on, you put these screws back in, these bolts, you're going to want to hand tighten them all with just your hand. Do not put a wrench on this. Just use your hand to turn it. Just hand tighten all of them. And when you go to torque them, they all require a specific torque. For this particular pickup, it's 85 to 90, I think it's 85 to 90 pounds of torque per bolt. You have to look in your manual or Google it, but you got to find out. Ask the guys at AutoZone, they'll help you out. You got to find out what that torque is. And you'll need a torque wrench, which you can borrow from AutoZone. I think they have a lot of tools like that. O'Reilly's, Napa. Just for this specific thing. However, if you absolutely can't torque them down, just give them about a quarter. Like once you get them hand tightened, all of them hand tightened, put the wrench on there and give them about a quarter half-inch turn. Do not over tighten them. This is an aluminum body here, and you don't want to strip that out. Then you'll have a really bad day. So another thing to note is when you do torque them, you want to go in a star pattern. So if I start with this bolt, I'm going to go to this bolt next on this corner. And then I'll go, no, scratch that. You'll start with this bolt here. Then you'll go all the way across to this bolt. Then you'll go all the way across to this bolt. Then you'll go all the way across to this bolt. And you'll just do a star pattern so they all evenly get tightened down and torqued. And then if you have a proper torque wrench, they click whenever you pull on it. They just make a couple of clicks. That's when it gives up. That's when you've put the proper amount of torque on it. So make sure you have the torque wrench set to whatever your specifications are, and do it correctly. Otherwise, what's the point of doing it at all? Once you have your engine put back together, you can then, without worrying about oil or throttle body cleaner getting in there, clean the throttle plate out.